So, welcome to Community Speaks. This is going to be a series of events exploring race and racism within Ealing. Our first event is going to be concerning the arts within Ealing, issues of racism and representation within the arts in Ealing, and a general discussion about that. Ealing is the third most diverse borough within England and Wales. Over 50% of residents in Ealing in a 2011 census declared themselves as non-white. So it's a very, very diverse borough.
Tonight we will hear from community groups that utilise the arts with their work with young people from diverse backgrounds. We'll also be showcasing those young people's work, and we'll also be hearing from people who are in positions of influence in the Ealing borough.
And some of the questions that we were looking at tonight are: what are the barriers for people entering the arts in Ealing? How can we make the arts more diverse and artistically vibrant and reflect the true nature of the borough? We begin tonight with a performance from Grace, the head of WAPI. WAPI is an organisation that helps young people in illustration and artistic writings. She today has written us a piece that reflects the fight for racism and the fight for equality across the Atlantic and in the UK are far from over.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen dignitaries. My name is Grace Kwanzaa, and I'm about to read you my poem Knee on My Neck, which was inspired by the tragic events around George Floyd in the US and the Black Lives Matter campaign. With your knee on my neck as I struggled to breathe, determined to snuff out my very last pleas, you grip, my head dipped, while the cuffs cut my wrists. I was desperate for air, but you did not desist. With your knee on my neck and your men on my back, licensed to kill because I am black. You shout, I passed out, while loved ones begged you to stop. Observers filmed on, and the world watched in shock. With your knee on my neck, I was too weak to resist. For 9 minutes long, my cries were dismissed. You lean as I screamed to unleash your hold. Your weight pressed my throat as my body went cold. With your knee on my neck and my face on the ground, outraged protesters gathered around. You arrested, I protested, to be free from your restraint. My requests were ignored with your deep racist taint. With your knee on my neck, as I exhaled my last breath, campaigns and race rights are fueled by my death. You denied while I died, stripped of my rights. Even though I lay still, supporters take up my fight. As I kneel on one knee and power up my hand, let's unite against racism by taking a stand. We resist and persist for all Black Lives Matter in memory of George Floyd and others. I'll forever mark out this chapter. Thank you very much, Akuba. June 6, 2020.
So up next we have Jan, who is an Ealing Council relatively new arts and culture manager, and after that we have John, who is the curator of Pittshanger Manor and Gallery in Ealing.
So I'm Jan de Schenkel. My title is Arts and Culture Manager at Ealing Council. So I'm still relatively new and building up the picture and mapping, etc. The first impression when people think of Ealing, they think about Ealing as quite leafy, white, middle class, perhaps. The statistics, as you pointed out, show that Ealing is actually the fourth most diverse borough in the whole country. So nearly 50% of people are not white English in Ealing. So that's wonderful. That's an incredible diversity and something to play with and to work at. In terms of arts and culture, I would say it sits wider because there are very few traditional anchor venues in Ealing, like you might see in other local authorities. So there is no music venue, no art centre, no professional theatre. Okay, we're going to develop a new cultural strategy. It should be a strategy of cultures, because in the plural. It needs to reflect both in terms of the artwork, that in terms of the product, in terms of the artwork that is available. It needs to reflect the diversity in terms of who decides what is being shown. And it needs to reflect the diversity in terms of people in governance positions in institutions. And I think before we can start with actions and kind of acting too quickly, let's do this, let's do that, we need to understand more what are those barriers and then try to remove those barriers. I think one of the things is that when people talk about arts and culture, they talk about high arts, they talk about going to the National Theatre or the Opera House, and people don't always recognize every creativity, or that culture is many things. Culture is about identity, it's about histories, it's about people's food, it's about ethnicity, it's about all of those rich histories. So again, if you were to have a more diverse representation at board level, at executive level, not just in terms of gender, ethnicity, sexuality, etc., those protected characteristics, but also in terms of social background, I think that is possibly one of the biggest kind of game changers.
My name is John Leslie. I'm the curator at Pittshanger Manor and Gallery, which is in Ealing. The idea is that we want the site to be, used and, used by the local community, to see it as a place to come and debate. And we've got big plans with the current show. We've got a more, some of our younger artists in. We're trying to represent London as it is in all its diversity. Setting up the barber shop, we thought free haircuts on certain days, would be attractive to people. Even if you're not interested in art, you might think, what the hell's that? Is that art? Is that what kind of, basically the exhibition's talking about public space, how it's been eroded, the different types of communities that live in those spaces. So I think in the art world in general, I mean, there are Black curators, there are Asian curators, top curators. There are people running organizations, but it's not as diverse as the population, that's for sure, or somewhere like Ealing, the borough. I think we're conscious that there's certain things, whether it's internally or the trustees or the way we think about things. Yeah, I think as I said before, I think the big thing for us, the big move that we need to embrace really, is this idea of probably how we perceive the local against, international artists, thinking, oh, this is the paradigm of what art should be and what people want to see. And then the local, well, what is the local? Who are the local artists? What is the local groups? I mean, the other thing is about getting out there to understand what's going on in Ealing.
And now the arts tutor Yasmin and Ami, who is a long-standing Bollowbrook Youth Centre attendee, will be discussing race-related artwork that they created that was actually showcased in Tate Modern and 17 Gallery in Haggerston.
Okay, I'm Yasmin from Bollowbrook Youth Centre. I'm the arts tutor and I've been here about 4 years.
I'm Ami, I'm 18 years old. I've been attending Bollow for about, I think, same time. Since I was 14. Came in this together, yeah. Like, I'm not trying to be funny or nothing, but like, people from the outside looking in, yeah, they think this is just some gritty youth club housing bare young people just to keep them out of trouble. Put trouble in one place so it's not spread all throughout the whole community. They don't realise that we actually do good work here. Like, people like get involved in these kind of things. They end up in the newspaper. They end up working at music labels. They end up doing apprenticeships, getting jobs, finding jobs, doing work here, work experience, volunteering.
So we're just going to talk a little bit about the piece behind us, which is part of a bigger project. Who we are, who we aren't, and it began from exploration around the use of the N-word in the studio and in the music here that some of the young people make.
The use of the N-word, yeah, is so normalised now. The justification for it now is that we've changed the meaning of what it means now. That doesn't make it okay. It's still racist. Don't matter if you're black, blue or purple. You shouldn't say it. That doesn't mean we don't. That doesn't mean like I don't say it. But if I sit down and have a serious conversation with someone about this, I know it's wrong to say it. Because like, if my ancestors were looking down on me, this would, they wouldn't find it justifiable to use that word on somebody else. Especially using it on your own kind. It's like we're bringing ourselves down.
But what about, I suppose one of the arguments was that it's been reappropriated and it can be a term of empowerment or endearment, like friendly.
No.
You don't think so?
Because if it can be used as a term of empowerment, then why is it not like that for everyone? Why are people still using it as a way to oppress us?
Like, rather remarkably, we managed to get the race exhibition that we had worked on in the Tate, at one of the late Tate events, just before it closed due to COVID. And Ami, you were present on that night, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people this time listening to the recordings,
lines.
interacting with the pieces, making their own pieces. What was that whole experience like, to see that happening and to know that?
It's inspiring. Like, it makes you want to talk more, like talk to people. I met this one couple, they hadn't been for anything. They've just lived on the green side of the grass their whole life. And like, talking to me, they were like shocked. Like, they didn't even think that happened. They didn't even know like this kind of stuff happens. They just came to see art. And it's like, when like them speaking to me, they were patient, they were kind, they were even like asking me questions and whatnot. And it's like, it's really, really encouraging to see different people engage, people you haven't met just straight off the bat. People walking in and just start engaging with products that you've taken so long to create. I don't really think it's about like telling somebody your experience, I don't think you tell them to change their mind on how they view certain things. You just tell them so they know that the other side of the coin as well, if they haven't experienced it. And white people haven't experienced the kind of things I've had to experience, you know what I mean? I know that for fact. I don't business. I know that 110%. That's not their fault, but it's not mine either. So I feel like them actually taking the time out their day to come and hear me talk about what I've been through and take it on board Like, they don't have to do that, one. Two, it obviously shows that there's some people that actually give a damn about these kind of things, that actually want to learn.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then thirdly, it was great to talk to somebody on the other side as well.
And just finally, what would it mean? I mean, would it mean anything to you if this work and other work that Bolo makes, whether that's music, art, etc., was actually shown here in Ealing, where obviously Bolo is based? Because 17 Gallery, that was Haggerston. Tate, yeah, that was a fantastic platform, but still, that wasn't your borough. That wasn't home. Essentially, we still haven't actually shown our work in Ealing.
Exactly, like, you gotta pay homage to your home. Like, it should have been here before anywhere else. Personally, for me, because it's the people in this community that we're speaking for or speaking about. We are part of this community, so why should it not be shown off and presented in this community?
Can I ask you something? Have you ever been to an art gallery in Ealing?
No.
Like the late Tate, essentially that's aimed at youngish people. It's just one night.
Yeah.
If there were more things like that in Ealing, maybe you'd go, or maybe the.
No, 110% would go, because I was willing. I went to the Tate. Like, if this is just on my doorstep, what's the problem? I can walk there. I would definitely go.
Okay, so one thing that we saw in what Ami said is that the race exhibition was done in Haggerston, which is all the way in East London, which is very weird for the experiences of a young person in Ealing to have their whole project moved to a borough where they don't really, although they feel the same experiences, it's a completely different environment. With that, you have a lot of the local culture being moved away to places where there isn't a huge sense of community compared to Ealing. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
I think that the situation is kind of representative of how my own experience has been. Seeing as when I was a young person growing up, probably around 13 or something, I wanted to get some experience in the arts, and I've looked on Google, saw if there was anything I could find, and the only opportunity was at the Young Jeffrey Museum in Shoreditch. And I had to travel like maybe an hour and a half on the tube across London to go to this gallery, which actually is very similar to Pitzhanger Manor gallery, which we spoke to John about, because it was a very Edwardian, quite a white establishment. But that was the only place offering experience, and for me to travel all the way across London, not to go to somewhere which was some underground, super cool place, but somewhere that was very much like somewhere that I had at home, is kind of representative of the lack of initiatives in Ealing. And when we look at the London Borough of Culture Award, which is an award given by the Mayor of £1 million to the arts and culture in a borough, which Walthamstow Forest has won this year, and the year before I believe it was Brent. Ealing seems a far way off from being able to achieve some of these awards or be given these fundings, because the artistic scene doesn't really exist, and you're having a kind of great migration of artists from West London to East.
It's a shame a lot of local talent is leaving the borough, and a lot of that local talent could be used to create a sense of community in places like Acton, where there is a huge wealth disparity and to some extent a race disparity as well. A lot of the people in the higher socioeconomic levels within Ealing tend to come from a more white
background.
British
and
background.
That's kind of when you see what arts, the few arts that we do have represented are ones that are very much class and racially divided. So when we have that initiative of where people can go to someone's house to see a gallery or whatnot, that's only really happens in places like Ealing Common and more affluent neighbourhoods, because you're not going to get people having gallery space in a council estate, are you?
I think based on what you said, especially about the award, it's important to highlight that that borough is not any different from us in the sense where Ealing actually has the possibility and the capability of actually being representative in the arts and making sure that we have the resources and things like that that we need. However, for some reason, we're just not seeing.
We're not seeing that same level.
And
So it is possible.
Yeah. Eventually, Ealing could be the place where other people from London, other boroughs come to Ealing for that arts initiative that we could potentially provide. But it is a real shame and an actual tragedy that that's just been completely ignored by the council. But I guess we're on to our next segment. Up next are a couple local artists from Bollebrook Youth Centre. We have H&L and Kens, who are two regular attendees of the Youth Centre. And then after that, we have Jamal Edwards, who is a local entrepreneur and the founder of the youth charity Delve. He will have a small interview after that.
Look, my name's Kens, I'm an 18-year-old rapper from West London, take me in. Right now we got a lot of issues going around in the world, I'm here to sum it up. Look, you see these things are getting reckless. The other day I heard they killed another black man right in front of where the press was. The older generation fought for rights and inequality, but how you think it's right to place your knee right where the neck was? You got people in power just abusing their power, cause power gives you power when you work for the system. So tell me, what's the point of living in a world where there's barely any change and we fight for freedom from opposition? So if I gotta die for some change to be inflicted on my life, I give my life because I'm tired of the sickness. I'm black and proud, there ain't nothing that I'll change. I want some 2020 vision, but we're treated like the slaves. If Martin Luther King in this modern day of age had to witness how the world is, I know we never quit. So see, the message in my bars is what I'm trying to give. How we living to die but always dying to live.
Yo, it's H&L. Big up Community Speaks. Add up all my socials, Instagram, h.nolotion. And yeah, man, Black Lives Matter. Listen. Look. Listen. Look. It's either dead or in jail, that's what they call my future. It's like, if you ain't white, then you label the loser. And just cause I'm black, it don't mean that I'm ruder. Bro, I ain't gonna rob you, you can keep your scooter. All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. Look what we bring to the culture, we brought Skepta and Jammer, Huss and Stormzy. Even Dave too, you should be proud, my brother. A warrior made you, but you can't avoid how they done George Floyd. He started off as a human, now he's null and void. And if you're young and black, you ain't gonna get employed. They think we some animals, it won't stop till we make noise. Stop and search, I'm used to it, humorous. Stopping me cause I'm black, you the stupidest. What's music without us, we're the grooviest. Unfortunately racism, I ain't new to this. I ain't trying to be racist, but you're being racist. You don't really care about us, just face it. Mark Duggan was shot, one intricate plot. They said that he had a Glock, yeah I hear that a lot. Mandela never had a gender, he just wanted equality forever and ever. And Martin Luther King had a dream so supreme. Black Lives Matter, man, it's more than a meme.
My name is Olivia and I'm 11 years old.
Hi, I am Joshua and I am 8 years old.
How many people told you that?
You will never be successful or get there.
In the beginning, I think a lot of people, because they didn't understand what I was doing. So when I first started, when I was in school, my teachers was like, "Oh, what?" I said I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and they was like, "No, like how are you gonna be an entrepreneur? You could, like, you're gonna work in a shop or whatever." And I think at the beginning, because what I was doing was quite new, no one really understood it. So they disregarded it, they dismissed it. So they was like, "Nah, it's not. You're not gonna be able to create a channel." And then, like, when I first started opening the channel, and then I probably got like 1 million views, I was like, I'm gonna hit 100 million views. Then people was like, "Yeah, you're not gonna hit 100 million views." So you're always gonna have doubters every step of the way. Like doubters from the beginning at school, even to doubt. Well, I don't have that many doubters now because of how far I've come. But in the beginning, there was a lot of doubters. And the person that said I couldn't get 100 million views, I got like 700 to 800 million views now. So like that just put what that person said to the side. So yeah, like when you're first starting, you're gonna have everyone that's gonna doubt you because they probably don't have the self-belief in themselves. So you just need to keep focused and don't let anyone sort of distract you from what you want to do.
Hi, my name's Kyra and I'm 13 years old. And my question for you is, what was the main part of growing up that helped influence your successful profession today?
I think being from Acton, like growing up around here, also like I think being told no was quite an like effect. Like I think if I didn't get told no so many times, I wouldn't have been so stubborn. I've been a very stubborn person. So if someone tells me no, I want to try and do it. So I feel like that like is the opposite of like that's sort of like the inspiration that I got from to get to where I am today. And I feel also my peers that I was around, they was getting quite successful. So that also inspired me to get as successful as them.
Next up is Denise from Descendants, an arts educational charity for children and young people from primarily non-exclusively African and Caribbean descent. And Grace from WAPI, a voluntary community organisation empowering young people from through creativity, and you'll also hear from the talented young people of WAPI.
Down in the Windrush City, where many people were pretty, there was no Instagram. So children had to do what they can. Down in the Windrush City, where many people were pretty, wearing their Sunday best, looking dressed.
Wind blew me through memories, the ones I've seen before. Memories of my first birthday. I couldn't eat cake. Memories of Christmases from all around the years. Everyone joyful, happy and excited with cheer. Memories of the sunshine in the wind. Memories of the holidays and where I've been. The wind is calm just like those good memories. But sometimes it mixes with thunder and lightning, creating a storm, just like those bad memories I try to keep away. The wind is everlasting, just like our thoughts and memories. The wind in our hair will always blow and be there, even if you don't have any hair.
Windrush generation, how did you do it? To depart from beloved Caribbean isles, to come to England, the greatest motherland, but know that your real one was away 4,000 miles. The Windrush generation, how did you do it? Because I would not have the strength to endure such. To move to foreign land, to be chained to the work, on strange land that your feet had never touched. The Windrush generation, how did you do it? To be deemed outcast from British society. To be treated as if you weren't human too, flooded with feelings of distress and anxiety. The Windrush generation, how did you do it? To still make the best out of every situation. Children playing games with joyous smiles along the Caribbean to London migration. Oh, Windrush generation, how did you do it? I want to let you know that we appreciate you. To undergo such a drastic change in living, to the Windrush generation, I will forever commend you.
Why did you mess up the brand new year? You're making a mess and injecting the fear. We're 6 weeks in and it feels like a year. Why can't you see it's becoming so clear that nobody really wants you here? Now it was only in December singing carols and doing present rapping. Now I'm stuck in the yard, my mum always yapping. Leave the house for the groceries, please wait in the line. If you cover up your face then it will all be fine. You coughing? Please move for me, brother. It's not about the race and it's not about the colour. I'm just trying to stay alive and see this thing through. It's not just me, cause I'm sure it's you too. If I tell you move back, it's nothing personal, G. I'm just trying to stay safe, so move it back a few feet. You coughing? Please move for me, brother. It's not about the race and it's not about the colour. You coughing? Please move for me, brother. It's not about the race and it's not about the colour. Where have you come from and why are you here? Why did you mess up the brand new year? You're making a mess and injecting the fear. We're 6 weeks in and it feels like a year. Why can't you see it's becoming so clear that nobody really wants you here?
People should have praise when they play football. People should treat black people nicely. I want to see black people treated fairly. I want to see black people treated fairly.
Hello, my name's Denise Charles. I am chair for Descendants. Descendants is a charity, an art-based focused charity based in Acton, Ealing Borough. Descendants has been going on for the past 26 years. The founder is Margaret Noel. Descendants is an art-focused educational project aimed at children and young people aged 4 to 18 years old, though not exclusively, of African and Caribbean descent. As I said, it's been going for 26 years now. Some of the troubles that we've been facing is having a venue for our children's club. So previously we've had a children's club on a Friday evening, but we've really struggled. So we've gone from the Priory to Everyone Acton in Acton, to Bollow Community, and now we're at Acton Community Gardens Centre, but we're actually paying for that. So I think when we're talking about Black Lives Matter and Ealing Council, how are they actually going to help fund children's clubs, which are supporting with education, supporting the community? And we know not everything has to be financial, but there must be something that they can do to ensure that there's some public space for youth activities. We've got the backing of the mayor this year, so he's chosen Descendants to be his charity, and he's trying to raise money for us because he can see the good work that's being done. But the council themselves are not offering any public space for charities or youth clubs, which they're building new properties, making lots of money, but how are they giving back to the local community? So the barriers are venues, space, because that's really, really expensive. So again, that then comes down to financial. As I said, we have got the backing this year of the mayor, so he's fundraising for us to help. We have had money before from Ealing, for the Dr. Roberts Annual Achievement Awards, where children are nominated from local schools in Ealing for different categories that we have, and that's normally held once a year to celebrate the achievement of Black and African and Caribbean young people. Other barriers are volunteers, so securing really good volunteers who are willing to help, because as I said, we don't have the money to pay people, so we're always looking for volunteers. So Descendants hold an annual 1 week of dance, and we've done that for the past few years. So we have people coming in to teach young people different dance routines. At the end of the week, we actually put on a showcase, and parents, young people, the local mayor are invited in to observe what they've learned. We've done lots of different art. We did a fashion show, and that was put on at Gunnersbury alongside Brentside High School. We've done Windrush artwork. So Descendants are doing lots of things around the arts, but it's not always recognised. And some of it we will take responsibility of that, maybe not marketing what we're doing enough. But again, marketing costs money. Yes, we can use social media, but not everybody's on social media. So it's about having newsletters that can be printed and handed out to people. There's a lot of people at the moment saying that everything's online, it's remote, but not everyone has a laptop, not everyone has a computer, not everyone has a smartphone. So it's making sure that we're accessible to all young people, not just those who are privileged. How that is benefiting the young people in the Ealing Borough that engage with Descendants is that those young people are able to be economical citizens. They're progressing onto university, they're progressing onto apprenticeships, not always within the arts, but they are doing that. Those students have been recognised, are coming back to talk to our other young people and talking about their experience and how what they've done at Descendants has helped them with being productive young people, not only in education, but coming back and supporting, giving talks to them. So it's not always about just the education, it's also about the social things, mental health, people coming back and saying, you know, this is what I was going through, but still working with Descendants has helped me to work through that and still be able to go out there and improve my own life.
My name's Grace Kwanzaa, also known as Akuba, and we're doing an interview today for Community Speaks, and I'm pleased to be able to invite.
Hi, my name is Ivy. I am a member of WAPI, and I'm going to be asking some questions to the founder of WAPI, who is Grace or Akuba. So my first question for you is, when and why did you start writing poetry, stories, and doing storytelling?
Thank you. Well, actually, I started quite a long time ago as a child, maybe in the sort of like late 60s, after I'd spent a time in private foster care and then spent a couple of years in Ghana with relatives of friends of my father and mother. I think I wrote because I could sense I'd been brought up in different environments, an English family in Essex for 5 years, Ghana 2 years, and writing gave me a sense of trying to buffer any pain I might have felt through being separated from my natural parents. So writing started as a cathartic tool to help me express myself, because I was a loner and quite a shy child, and I always loved nursery rhymes, and so I used to read a lot, and I used to love the thrills that rhymes gave me. And so at some point I transferred the thrill of reading to the thrill of writing poetry.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you is, can you give any advice to someone who wants to start writing poetry or poems?
Young people, poetry is about self-expression. So the first thing is, you believe you can write, you're a good writer. It doesn't have to rhyme, it's about your view, your feeling about something. Join groups. It doesn't have to be WAPI, but it does help if you get to hear other people's way of expressing themselves. Do a lot of reading, because you need to find your own niche. It's like children's writing, you know, you've got different genres, whether it's horror, romance, politics, sci-fi. Over the years, my poems have become more political. I'm also a funny person, so you need to know what kind of poetry you like to read and what kind of... I love Benjamin Zephaniah. He's an amazing orator, he's a generous person, and he's extremely inspiring. And I think that I don't write on his level, but I can connect with his work through poetry, because he says poetry has to be heard. So even though I write poetry, I do try to put my poetry out there to be heard.
Okay. Another question is, what inspired you to start WAPI?
It's a long story, but it came out of meeting a lot of young writers who were loners, some who were doing very well at school, some who weren't. It cut across any particular colour or heritage, just children who were thinking outside of the box, and yet they had no way of bringing their words into some kind of formal setting. So I wanted to create a forum for young people to become authors. So if they see their own work in print, it makes them realise, hey, other people are taking me seriously. Spoken word is an old tool which has passed down through generations in every culture. So I'm actually empowering you to put your spoken word in print, because this is the thing about academia, the thing about society. Through schools we have to study, but isn't it great to be able to get others to study what you're producing? So it started through wanting to encourage young people to be young authors, but then it wasn't just about literature, written word, it was also about art, and then it became about filmmaking, about drama, about performance. So although it's still called WAPI, it's about creative expressions, because when you develop a young person's confidence, as you do when you work in a mindful type of way, there's nothing they cannot do. So we've seen young people aspire to great heights, even when they've not been at school and they've not been doing very well at school. They are so confident, and that's something no one can take away from you.
And my final question is, what impact has WAPI had on the community?
Well, I think it's brought communities together, young people able to volunteer with us when they are with WAPI or when they've left WAPI. We've seen young people go to university. They've taken, my daughter went for an interview. She started WAPI as a young author. Well, she was 7 when she started WAPI, became a young author. And when she went to apply for sixth form, well, all the heads of departments and those who interviewed her were looking at the books with her work. You can answer that finally. How's WAPI inspired you? Because you are a living testament.
So before I joined, when I was in year 6, I believe, before I didn't really write poetry, didn't really write stories, weren't really interested in them. But I feel like as I've gone to WAPI and I've heard other people's experiences, your experiences of writing poetry, I've kind of found a bond with poetry. Now I write poetry every other day. So I feel like that's what WAPI has done for me, that I'm able to develop my poetry skills.
And you know what? I have learned something today. I know you've been a poetry winner, but I had no idea that you write poetry every day. And I say to you, please, let's see your book. Don't wait for the next WAPI book. You have enough poems already to create your own book. So let's see this book, because you're an inspiration. WAPI children are an inspiration to me and my husband, who's been part of WAPI too. We're like a family, so I can't wait to see your work out there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivy.
Okay, so Taya, as per the previous video, why do you think there is a lack of community spaces and what impact does that have?
So I think if we look at Bollowbrook Youth Centre, which is a youth centre that we're all aware of, due to the new build of housing in the South Acton area, the new development, Bollow has been forced to move below these new builds and basically shrink in size. And that's definitely affected the amount of young people who are able to come in and have that space. Anyway, I think before even the shrinkage of size, Bollow was a rare place that we had in the area for people to actually go to. So for that to actually shrink in size as well is even more of an issue. I think, as we can see from the artwork showcased that we saw from Ami, it's very important that we do invest in spaces such as these, because I think
they're a space for young people to kind of show and develop.
Yeah.
And I think also what you mentioned about Bollow, and very much to Denise's point as well, is that the limited spaces that we do have are being shrunk or closing, and it's like can be frustrating, especially when we see empty uses of other spaces. For example, the library spaces, and the old Acton Town Hall. And those spaces could be provided right now to give these organisations somewhere to practice their creativities, and even for young individuals just to have a space to use them. And when we cut funding, we take away these spaces, or we increase charges, or we're not subsidising spaces for youth organisations, we're not only just damaging the arts, but damaging the community, who are losing a vital place to relax, you know.
And as we stated, like, there are so many places that we could use. It's not like we have nothing. There are so many abandoned buildings and unused sites that we can use, but for some reason we haven't been offered these places.
And then even then, the original use of these places, for example, the library, Grace brought up literature in one of her points, and the fact is where these young people are going to get inspiration and have access to poetry and literature if there's no more libraries, if there's nowhere for them to take out books. So we can't promote these things to young people and say, use creative avenues, but then at the same time give them no
away.
Yeah, and that's the same even with the shrinking of Bolo and the acting. What is it? The new development.
Yeah.
It really does show that there is no real sense of meritocracy in a sense, because how there is this disparity amongst the low socioeconomic parts of Ealing, they're not really provided these same opportunities, whilst somebody in a much higher, more affluent part of Ealing, they have much more access to larger spaces, places to think, places to express themselves. It really does show the disparities within Ealing.
So that brings us to our next performance, which is from Effie. And we will also be having a performance by me, and I'll be performing a short poetry piece on gentrification.
These performances will also be followed by a talk from Julian Bell, who's a long-standing Labour councillor in Ealing.
Hi, my name is Effie Kwanzaa George. I'm 16, and this poem is for Community Speaks. Black Lives Matter. Black. B. Beaten up like police. Typical. L. Looked at like criminals. A. Attacked like bees hunting for a hive. C. Captured and enslaved, but still we survive. K. Killed our people. Stole our land. But now it's our time that we take a stand. Black is beauty. Black is power. Black is love. Black is culture. Black is everything and more. Black isn't being judged. Black isn't being followed into a shop. Black doesn't mean I'm a criminal. Black doesn't make me dangerous. But black is greatness and power, and now we've won. So here's our time to show you no more racism. Black Lives Matter, and this is just the start to what you people have done.
London without Londoners, settler colonies. You took over the world, now you want to take over my hood, colonize the end, Starbucks and Whole Foods descend. The city loses its soul, lo and behold, all that's left is a sea of signs that say sold. We'd rather empty homes than provide ones for those who roam. Vacant properties, the city's prophecy. Dormant houses, investment without displacement or the replacement of a community. Inflation is the correlation, postcode poverty, urban sustainability. In reality, it's a fallacy. Social mixing is not the creation, but in fact segregation, urban degradation. La ville est fatigue, a city of poverty. People are tired from their ancestor generational trauma. Settler colonies, social cleansing. If you position yourself as an ally, then think about where you choose for your head to lie. Invest from within, build up for the next of kin. Protect, produce, preserve, maintain the reserve of wealth and knowledge that we held.
I'm Councillor Julian Bell. I'm the leader of Ealing Council. You know, we value equality. We value the fight against racism and the need to expunge it from our society. And it's absolutely right that everybody's come together in condemning it and also recognising the structural inequalities and racism that exist in the UK and in London and in Ealing. You know, even though we're this fantastic diverse borough, there is still racism. So we need to make sure that we're all working together to try and eliminate it. As you have said, over 50% of our borough are Black, Asian or minority ethnic. So we need to work at trying to get more black representation amongst councillors. Certainly, you know, we need to have more senior officers who are from our black and Asian and other ethnic minority communities. We've announced that we are going to have a commission that will have an independent co-chair, and that commission will look at the structural inequalities that impact on our black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. Yeah, and that's the purpose of us setting this independent commission up, so that, you know, we actually step back and let the community speak and tell us what we need to do to change and improve. And, you know, as you rightly say, this can't be just a short-term response. It has to be real, and it has to be long-term, and it has to be significant. Yeah, we've just got to be creative and not use cuts as an excuse not to do things. I mention those because you can't ignore it, but equally, where there's a will, there's a way. You got to find a way through, even when you're struggling. Acton Library is the old Acton Library is a good example of how we've had the community come to us and say, yeah, we want to organise a community arts project with a cinema, and we'd like the council's support, and we've given that support, and we're working in partnership to help bring about that community arts facility and project. And so where we can help, we're absolutely committed to do that. So there are opportunities, and you know, it's about making sure people know about them and are able to take advantage of them. And obviously, you know, we do want to encourage our young people and those with artistic talent and flair to stay in the borough. And you know, if there are any proposals that people have got, then you know, my doors are always open, and I'm ready to work and try and help. You know, certainly I've been very positive and supportive of the efforts that have been made around street art. So clearly, we need to try and do more, and I'm very happy to try and encourage that and use the resource of the council, be it our officers or you know, the various projects and things that we're doing to try and integrate street art into them. And we have done that. I think Jamal is fantastic. He's a brilliant role model, fantastic success story, and just a wonderful, humble, but achieving young man. And I'm very supportive of putting that mural up on the side of the Acton Town Hall. And yeah, there's certain hoops that we have to jump through in order to get various permissions to do so. But I've been in touch with officers over the last few days, trying to push that forward so that we can get that sorted out, so that can be done, because I think it's a great way of saying to our young people, look, you know, here's an example of someone who's succeeded and who we have enormous respect for, and yeah, you can do the same. Why not? I have in the past said that Acton's the new Hackney, and there's no reason why we can't be like that. And yes, there are opportunities that will come as a result of Crossrail and new developments, and we as the council are making sure that we extract from developers we extract from developers genuinely affordable homes and community infrastructure, be that community rooms and spaces, or be it monies for our schools and our health services.
So I'm glad everyone could join us here tonight. If you could just introduce yourself, starting with Denise.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Denise Charles and I am chair of the local charity Descendants.
Ami?
Oh, I'm Ami, and I'm a young person that goes to Bollowbrook Youth Centre in Acton.
And Julian?
I'm Councillor Julian Bell. I'm the leader of Ealing Council.
So I'll start with the first question. So the council is the largest employer within Ealing, and staff are mostly from diverse backgrounds. However, where higher management levels are concerned, ethnic minorities are disproportionately underrepresented. Why does panel members think that is? And could I start with Denise?
Okay, I would say that I think that's because the people who are interviewing are only employing people who look like themselves. So if the people above are of white background, they are then employing the people that look like themselves. So this is what we need to move away from, to have that even playing field where either people who are white employing have opened their minds more so that they can see everybody equally and employ people on their merits and on their qualifications, not on their background and their privilege.
Thank you. Julian?
I accept that we need to improve and have more, especially senior officers from Black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds. It's not to say that we haven't had some success. We had an Asian chief executive. We have an assistant director who is from the Caribbean. So it's not enough though, and clearly we need to do more, and I think what Denise has said is certainly true. There's all this discussion that we're rightly having about unconscious bias is I think something that we all need to learn about and look to ourselves and see how we can eliminate that and make sure that we give people an equal opportunity, a flat playing field, which is then based on people's abilities and their ability to do the job. Now, I'd like to think that that's how we do things. I've sat on those interview panels for 12 years or more, actually, a long time. And certainly it's always in my mind that I want us to have a diverse senior management group. But clearly we need to do more.
Can I add something else into
Yeah.
that?
This is a big conversation.
So, you've said that you sat on those panels and those interviews. Are you then saying that the people who have come forward for those job roles have not been Black, Asian, minority people?
Clearly we've employed people who are from Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups and communities, but and sometimes we'll have people from those communities who we interview, but we think that they're not the best person for the job. I'd always like to think that we've been looking to employ the best person for the job, But clearly, we need to be representative of our community at all levels of the council. So, like I say, we need to look to ourselves and try to do more. And it is, and I think there is a lack of candidates coming forward. So it's about opportunity right from the beginning when people are in school, you know, that they get the best possible education, and then they're ready and competing when they come in front of us to challenge for these jobs, and hopefully.
I would say that I've heard that so many times before, that the people who come, we always employ the best person for the role. I think that's a little bit of a cop-out as well, to be honest. Yes, I do agree with you that it does take education, and the young people need to be educated so that when they do go for those jobs, they are already on that even playing field. But already at schools, then, if you're going to talk about educating them, already we know in schools there's a lot of already unconscious bias going on in schools. So it's okay saying we're going to employ people, but we need to go back further down and make sure that all the schools are also treating all the children equally. And we're talking about the arts. We'll not be able to show our arts in different places, but I'll stop.
I think you mentioned that there's there is due to be an independent commission focused on Black and Asian minority groups. How can we hold the commission accountable in the future? What kind of, you know, just based off what Denise said, we've actually heard a lot of conversations and things like that, but a little action. How can we ensure that there's some sort of accountability taken? What can we do to ensure that?
So, yeah, we want anything that we do to be absolutely not tokenistic, but real.
Yeah.
And so the idea that the council wouldn't chair the commission and that it would be an independent person is a way that, you know, in a way we can hand over the commission and the work that they do to the community. And so it would be the community that's then saying to the council, this is what you can do better. And we're, you know, we can't be defensive. We have to be big enough and strong enough to take criticism and to recognise where things need to improve. You know, and for me, I know that there is racism out there. It's something that I've seen, and so, you know, we need to get as much to the root causes of it as we possibly can. So having an independent commission will hopefully you know, ask really hard questions and then say what are you going to do about it, and you know, have some serious asks of us as the council.
I think also when it comes to a commission, and I'm not too sure if this is part of the council, but I know when it comes to government, often the response of when, you know, issues of racism are brought up, we'll have an inquiry into it. But often we left with what it is in the state, for the state of national government, is countless inquiries and reports. We've got the Lammy report, we've got reports by the Running Me Trust, we have independent reports through either select committees, through MPs, or individual groups who have reported on this and have very carefully and precisely outlined what the issues are and what can be implemented right now to change the situation. But instead of implementing those changes, we often then just suggest another inquiry into the issue. So for me, it's not really about the inquiry, but is it just going to be another tenfold inquiry which never gets implemented?
And how long will it take?
Exactly.
So we want to take it to a point where it's substantive and it really does address the issues, but it can't last for a long time. So we've kind of said we would want to try to complete it by the end of this calendar year, and that there are specific actions and recommendations that would come out of it, and that there would be an action plan which we would then have to implement. And certainly, you know, it's my commitment that the council will take on board and act on what is said to us and what comes back.
I think the main thing as well on top of that is a lot of us just want transparency from the council when it comes to it. We want to see what's happening, whether there's any mistakes that are being made purposefully or not. We just want to see and sort of analyse and critique what's going on, so there is a fairer process for all of us. So the proposals that would be made would actually be approved by people on the ground who know what's actually happening. But sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that's come out of discussions that we've already had is that, you know, people want us as elected representatives to come out of the town hall and meet with local groups on their territory and you know, to see things out there in the community and come with our ears wide open. You know, not just stay in the town hall. So I'm very committed to the idea of you know, the commission can decide what it wants to do, but from a council perspective, I would want us to go out into the community and really listen.
Well, sorry, no, go.
You said that you're going to really listen and the commission is going to take board on our ideas and whatnot, take a bit of control. But like, we've been asking for change and requesting so many stuff for years now, and the excuse is funding, not enough funding. So now that you're saying that you guys are really going to listen this time, is it going to be the same excuse?
So you will have heard me say that I'm not going to use the cuts as an excuse. And that's not to say I don't have a big financial COVID headache. I have a serious COVID financial headache. It's costing, yeah, well, yeah, all of us. Yeah, none of us knew this was coming in the way that it's come, and it's impacted on everybody, and it's a big challenge for everybody. But I guess, you know, there are opportunities in any kind of difficult situation. You know, there's always a silver lining. So, you know, one of the things that COVID has done is it's changed the way that the high street and town centres will operate. You know, to be honest, I didn't really kind of do much online shopping. I didn't do much shopping full stop, but during the lockdown, I've actually done quite a lot of online shopping. Hey, I was bored, I've got nothing else to do. But it's changed substantially the way people get what they want. People do it online. So, you know, sadly, there are going to be a lot of shop closures in our town centres. That's going to happen, no matter how hard we try to stop that happening. You know, the way that people work now and shop, it's changed. So we're going to make our planning system flexible so that we can use some of those empty shops to give to community projects and look about, you know, so having somewhere to have art projects, community art projects, there will be some opportunities, and you know, as I said, where there's a will, there's a way.
Just off the back of that, in terms of offering closure of shops to communities, we have so many like libraries and empty buildings and stuff already for years that have been basically abandoned, that could be used and open to us. Like, for example, Bollowbrook Youth Centre, that has, due to the new builds in South Acton, they've had to shrink in size, which has affected how
the
capacity and how we can actually use the service. So why haven't we been offered to use the space of the buildings, like the libraries and things like that already? Why does it take COVID and private shops for them to close for us to actually be offered that?
So before COVID happened, there was a life before COVID. It seems a long time ago now, but we'd already started to do things around our libraries in order to open them up to community use more. And that was partly in response to our budget problems. You know, we've had our budgets cut by 64% over the last 10 years. And so we've had to think creatively about how we can save some money and about how we can still get some of the positive outcomes. So we've created what we call community libraries. Now, not all of we'll continue as the council to run our main libraries, 6 main libraries, and we've made the choices of which libraries we run on based on where deprivation is within the borough. But other libraries, rather than close them, we've said that we would get community organisations to come and run them. And they will have those buildings to do what they like with. And, you know, our hope is that they'll be able to do more in the evenings when normally the library would be shut. They can start to do community activities. And so, yeah, that's one thing we really want to see kind of progress.
Be offered to services like
that was going to be my question. So, are you able to name a community group that is actually in one of these 6 libraries?
So, just when COVID struck was when we were just preparing for these new community groups to move into the libraries. So, the libraries closed, the community libraries, they closed just before Christmas. We were due to start reopening them with the community groups running them. And one example is the Ealing Law Centre. So they'll be running the Hanwell Library for us. And we were hoping that from April, May onwards they would start, but of course that was right in the middle of the pandemic. So,
sorry to interject.
Yeah.
Is there any then spaces, you've just mentioned the community groups, are there any of those arts organisations or youth art organisations specifically for youth groups? Because I can imagine a group of law advocates would have more resources and accessibility to spaces than a group of young people, groups that are working specifically on artists who are going to 100% have less resources than law professionals.
So the idea is that we got community groups to run the libraries, but they will, the Ealing Law Centre will want to work with arts groups.
But are any of those community groups
that are running the libraries? I don't believe so, if my memory serves me correctly.
Do you not think that that's part of the issue though? Because as we see, when we talk about austerity, when we talk about cuts, often the first thing to go are the arts, and that's been a consecutive run on in policy during the period of austerity. And so when those spaces are not specifically reserved and put priority for those art groups and other groups are then prioritised, it's then up to their initiative to then decide, well, we're going to collaborate with art organisations. Whereas if at least one of those spaces was specifically reserved for our art groups who already have communication for, whether that was Descendants or Bolo or WAPI, at least those groups are interconnected and we know that there's going to be a space specifically preserved rather than it working just on the hope that these other groups will incorporate the arts into it.
Okay, let me give you 2 examples. So we've got the old Acton Library in the High Street there, and we as the council are fully supporting that to become an arts centre. So the proposal is that it would have a cinema, but it would be an arts centre. And we fully support that. We've kind of given it the green light and said, yes, we want to do that. And again,
that was a community-led initiative, though. From
but
grassroots. It's great that
which is great, which is what we want, and we've said yes, we support it, and we'll do everything we can to make it work. The second example is this building that we're sitting in. So this particular community space within the Dickens Yard development in central Ealing is run by Open Ealing, which is a West Ealing an Ealing arts group, and they've been a little bit nomadic. They've been in some A2 Dominion office space for a while, and they've moved around, but basically this is a space that we've managed to get for the community from St George, the developers, and it's an art-based organisation that are now here. So there are opportunities. I'm not saying it's all going to be.
How are those opportunities advertised to everybody? Because you're saying it. Descendants didn't hear about that. You're saying about the libraries being there that we can get community space in. We didn't hear about that. How is that being communicated to people to know that that is available? We maybe have all come together. We would have put in a bid for us together as a group for that space. But if that communication is not coming down to the charities and the youth clubs, how can we actually have that facility?
So if we've not managed to communicate these things, that's clearly something that we have to look to and do better in terms of having a better communications channel. Some may think this is a good idea, others may be very happy to see the end of my COVID-19 video blogs that I've been doing. But I didn't do those before the crisis. But actually, I think it's been quite useful to get the message out to people. We send out a weekly email as the council for people who sign up to it now. It goes out to nearly 100,000 people, the email plus my vlog. And so it is about using those channels. And yeah, we've learned how to do things virtually during this crisis as well. So, and we're doing it now with this initiative. So that we've got to learn from the experience and be better. So I apologise if we've not got the information out there. But
sorry, first to move on just to the next bullet point, but you actually led us in very nicely. You mentioned in the video that your door would be open for constituents. Obviously, I know MPs hold some sort of town hall, but you're open to connecting with local people in the area. How then are those? What type of channels and avenues are open for people to get in contact with you then?
Your
policy.
Yeah. So if you want to come as a group, we may have to do it virtually or certainly socially distanced. But very happy to allocate some time to talk through what you're asking and what your ideas are. And we heard from Jan right at the beginning of the programme tonight, who's our senior officer in terms of culture and arts in the borough. Jan and I would be really delighted to kind of listen and then see what we can do. My door is always open, even though it's a virtual one now.
One thing that you mentioned in the interview, and you mentioned here again, is where there's a will, there's a way. We're not trying to blame, you're not trying to blame a lot of this on cuts, which is a huge factor, which is great, but I think when it comes to the arts especially, other boroughs have been leading on it, especially considering all the cuts when it comes to council funding. Walsall, Forest and Brent have won London Council. Yeah, they've won the London Cultural Borough Award for a couple of years now. Why isn't Ealing doing this? Is Ealing still holding its image of a leafy, white suburbia, which is really separate from the rest of London, or like, where is this disparity coming from?
So it's £1 million as well, if I could just add, for the cultural borough. So so Walthamstow, Forest and Brent have both won £1 million by the mayor for being one of London's cultural boroughs. Obviously, I'm sorry to interject, but if we're talking about austerity in council, but all of these respective councils have experienced similar types of restrictions, some even more deprived than us in terms of funding, and they've managed to still put that money into the arts to be able to be awarded the cultural borough. You also mentioned in the video that Ealing will be the new Hackney in a few years, but if it's going on the rate that it is in terms of cultural activities or any form of culture inside the borough, then
it's going out of the way.
Yeah.
Really.
So believe you me, I certainly for the first round of bids for Borough of Culture, which Waltham Forest won, we put together as Ealing quite a strong campaign and package, and I made it abundantly clear to my officers that I wanted us to win. I wanted that money, and I was very disappointed when we didn't win that money. I talked to the leader of Waltham Forest and I said, well, what did you do? Tell me, because I want to know. And yeah, they kind of used celebrity, and they used all kinds of ways of getting public support from the residents within the borough for their campaign to win. So there are things that we can do, and Jan, if he doesn't already know it, will know that is one of the kind of outcomes that I will measure his performance against in terms of us, getting that Borough of Culture award, because it's funding that's there, and I want it. I don't want it. I want it for Ealing.
But I think also when you look at it, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. They didn't become a cultural borough because they got the money awarded. They got the money awarded because they already had that cultural, those cultural elements in there. And I don't know if anyone's visited those areas, but if you go to Waltham Forest, there's plenty of spaces for young artists. Me personally, as I mentioned earlier in this live stream, that when I was younger, had to travel all the way across London to East London to Hackney to areas like Walthamstow to be able to have access to any sorts of arts activities, because in Ealing it was virtually non-existent. So if we look at how then Jan could possibly win the next Cultural Borough Awards, there needs to be something in place, because currently there's nothing in place. And when we even look at areas like Brent, they've been having for a number of years, my mum works in the libraries there, they've had cultural festivals and various sorts of activities for young people and especially people of colour to partake in, and access that are also free, because I think a large problem is the arts that do exist here are extremely barred by socioeconomic status. When we have events like I forget the name, but where you visit artists' houses and can see the work, that there is completely restricted by class, because only those people with larger houses, access to gardens, access to have the ability to invite people into their home are able to showcase their art. It's not going to happen. It's not a surprise that majority of the homes are in Ealing, Common, or in more affluent areas of the boroughs than in South African, for example. So I just don't see how it's possible that those bids would ever be accepted when those measures do not exist here.
Yeah, so clearly we have to up our game, and we have to do a lot more, and irrespective of whether we win those bids or not, we need to do a lot more. I also hear what you're saying in terms of economic barriers as well.
Yeah, because this is focused on also barriers to art, so it's not just about having more arts in Ealings, but it's about having accessible arts, so that's an important point.
And the accessibility comes from also the museums and the art galleries allowing that art to be shown to be shown for a reasonable price. Descendants, we put in a bid for a windrush and we didn't get that accepted, that funding. So that means then we couldn't show our artwork. Why should the children of Ealing and Acton be deprived of showing their artwork because we couldn't afford to fund that? Why couldn't Gunnersbury or Pitshanger or W5 allow that artwork to be shown for free?
So the way Pitshanger works is that there are certain Ealing days. So I think it's Tuesday and then Sunday morning, where any resident from the borough will get free viewing of whatever exhibition is on at Pitshanger. Now, again, we've heard earlier tonight about making sure that working to get Pitshanger more accessible and
I think the word was might.
well, we need to kind of push that door open, I think, and remove that word might. I'm actually a trustee on the board at Pitshanger, so I will take it as my mission to ensure that we do have those opportunities for local artists to be able to exhibit at Pitshanger for free.
How do you feel like, have you felt that the art spaces in Ealing, I don't know whether it's the galleries or other places, have been accessible to you? Have you, did you hear about Pitshanger Gallery or any other spaces?
I've never heard of that in my life. I'll say that because I know how to apply for the right benefits more than I know where the safest place is to hang out or where I can and cannot offload or where it would be best for me to show my talents. There's more advertisement on new homes and new parks and what you are going to do and what you are spending money on than what needs money to be spent on. I've never heard of it. I wouldn't know what it is. Nobody is diverting traffic to go there. There's no, billboard pointing me that way. So when you say that you're going to do more, are you going to do more in terms of giving space or actually inviting young people to come into the space? Because even if you build the space and no one goes in, it's just going to be cut the funding again. So
I think based on what Anna said as well, obviously being someone who goes to Bolo, because of the development of Acton Gardens, the Bolo that we used to have is now, as I said, been shrunken in size, and that, I'm sure you can say, was a place where you was able to showcase your art and feel like you could have a space where you could create. So I think it's very important that if we are going to have loads of places that are going to be shrunken in size, then places like Pitshanger and things like that are open, we need to
be
diverted to places like that
and diversified
and not just a separate we'll put on a Sunday every month or Black History Month, let's just invite locals. We need to actually be incorporated in the actual system of
framework.
In the framework. Not just a one-off.
And following on from what you're saying, while we were waiting, I thought, let me just work out how much we spend. So Descendants spends over £10,000 a year on hiring space to have children's clubs. Is that really fair? Does Ealing think that's fair for a charity to spend over £10,000 to support young people in having activities? That's not fair.
I don't think so either. Especially if you said Descendants are for age people, did you say 4 to 18?
Yeah.
Okay, and 4 to 18, I'm 18 right now. I'm still young. I'm basically the future in the growing up. So let's say they don't have £10,000 or they don't have enough money to cover the whole year. Within the 1, 2 months or 6 months they are looking for space or are closed, those are young people that they're losing. Young people that are being diverted to do other things with other people. And I'm not saying it's going to be negative, but they're not going to want to come out anymore. They're going to be at home or they're going to be on the streets just finding something else to do with their time when they can do at Descendants, do something meaningful.
Sure. There needs to be more support.
And now, maybe we can as well bring on to that. Let's think of some solutions, because this is a solutions-based event. So
I have some solutions.
Yeah.
So we have, I mean, you've said about the shops, and I hear that, but before even the shops, we have local schools, we have FE colleges, we have West London College, we have West London University. They have space, they have days when they're open till 9 o'clock at night. Why can they not support local charities from Ealing Council, giving them that kind of direction that you need to give some time, some rooms and space that these charities and youth clubs can have clubs going on in them for free?
So,
why can that not happen?
Well, I guess there's no reason why it can't happen. I think why it sometimes doesn't happen is that whatever organisation, be it the University of West London or be it Ealing Council, that every organisation is struggling to maintain its financial sustainability. Now, as a council, we give out grants to voluntary organisations in the borough. We've had to cut the amount of grants that we give because the government have cut our budgets massively, but we've still got that programme where we give out grants to community groups because we don't want to eliminate that and cut it completely. We realise the value of community groups and charities and the things that they do. You know, the mayor has chosen Descendants as his charity to support, and again, the mayor is a kind of institution, the first citizen of the borough that we can kind of deploy as an asset to support local charities. And each year the mayor will choose a couple of charities. I think he's made a very wise choice in choosing Descendants, and I know he's been supportive over many years for what you do. So all I'm saying is it's never easy. Everybody's kind of struggling to make ends meet, but we must we've got to find a way to try and do more.
The space is there in the colleges and the university. They're not using every single room 365 days a year, all day long. They have got space. So if they were to offer 2 rooms each to each charity on different nights, it wouldn't, financially cripple them.
And that brings us on to one of our other solutions, Taylor.
Yes. So building better links between local arts-based community organisations and external funders, other organisations and more established art bodies in Ealing. So I feel like there is definitely a disconnect between every group that I've just stated. So I think we need more advertisement. We need to know when there's funding available, where the funding is available. As Loan said, we need to know what plans that you have, what's gone wrong. We need more transparency, more clarity, and a better link between each of the groups. I think that's definitely something that we need to have.
Sure, and we've heard Jan earlier, and he's a really important person in all of this. So make sure that you kind of buttonhole him, and as well as buttonholing me.
How much? So based off of that, how much? I don't want to say power, but how much influence would he have in actually making sure that the stuff that we communicate to him is actually going to get to people like you who actually maybe have the final say in what actually goes on? Because we all have so many solutions and things like that, and we have that connection with Jan, but what's beyond that? How do we know that that's actually
So I have a cabinet member, Councillor Anand, who kind of holds the responsibility for community organisations and arts and culture in the borough, and Jan will work very closely with Councillor Anand, and essentially he's working on a cultural strategy at the moment for the council, and he will work with Councillor Anand in pulling that together. It then comes to the cabinet, which I chair as the leader, and then we will make the kind of final decision. But you know, I speak to Jan as well, and want to know what's happening, and take a keen interest in it. So you know, I would hope that it doesn't get lost. Some of it will depend. Some of it will be money and what money is available, but other bits of it will be getting other parts of the council, the regeneration officers of the council, to work with Jan to come up with some creative ideas. The planning officers, to talk with them to come up with some creative ideas about how we can find solutions that don't necessarily rely on money.
I think that Ealing has done like really great work in terms of being a diverse borough. I think it's just like the meaning diverse has just changed. So now it's like they're not really supporting the people from these ethnic minority backgrounds, the businesses and communities and centres. They're not really helping them anymore because they're already diverse. It's just faces now. I feel like that's just how it's just been changed. Like.
And if I could just jump into that kind of leads us to our third point of that. Ealing is, as we've seen, one of the most diverse boroughs in the country. But yeah, if you ask most people, or the projection that Ealing is often presented as, is this leafy, suburban, very white, very middle class borough, which is not representative of the borough that we see and that we all know. So, and I think a lot of that image does come often from how the council presents it, as well as how other organisations within the borough of Ealing present Ealing as. So, as you said, as Amy just pointed out, there are these diverse groups. So how is it that Ealing can shift the mentality away from this white suburban middle class area to reflect the actuality of what this borough is, which is very diverse, mixed class backgrounds, but that's not what we're seeing. So how, like, that's not something that's related to money, but a shift in mentality in reality.
So one of the things that's happened in the last month, or just over, was when the Black Lives Matter campaign and reaction to the terrible events in America with the horrible killing of George Floyd, was that the Colston statue of the slave trader in Bristol got pulled down. And as a response to that, I said on one of my videos that we as Ealing Council would have a review of all of our public spaces, the names of our roads, the names of buildings or estates, and if there was anything that was from our darker past in terms of colonial history, slave trade, whatever it was, that we would look to change it. So we've already made a proposal to change the name of Havelock Road in Southall. General Havelock brutally killed hundreds of thousands of Indian citizens in the First War of Independence in 1857 to do the history of it. And we found a positive name, a new name for that road. It's on the road where the big Sikh Gurdwara is, and so we're looking to call it after the name of the founder of Sikhism, Guru Nanak. Now we've said that we'll look at all of our public realm, because what I want is it's also about naming. When we have new blocks of flats or new roads, we name it after people from our black communities here in Ealing who've achieved. No disrespect to that statue with a big block of stone, but you know, I don't think I'm allowed as the leader of the council to get ropes and pull it down and replace it with something memorialising Steve McQueen's 12 Years a Slave. But frankly, that's what I want to do.
I think that also when we talk about representation, we don't also want to be sucked into a culture war, because at the end of the day it's not just about statues, it's not just about removing television shows, it's about the systemic culture, and it's about the systemic lack of representation. And the fact is that even if we do name roads after people and we create statues, it's great, but at the end of the day, what that is, without actual real change, it's tokenistic. Because until we see black and brown faces on the board, we see black and brown faces in management, and we don't just see black and brown faces who still stick to the same Eurocentric, white-based agenda, but there's a real diversity of thought and a real engagement with critical race thinking and an anti-racist strategy, which stems from more than just statues and more than just one person in power.
Because also, what will happen if you, financially, how much is that going to cost to do name changes? Because what then happens is, people who don't agree with it then say, Black lives don't matter, and they're wasting money because they're getting names of roads changed. Actually, like you said, we're not worried about name changes of roads. What we really want is, systematic change. That's what we want.
Put it in what's most important and when does it need to be done.
And what you've said is fantastic, and I 100% agree with what you're saying, you know. And that starts in the schools, I think. Definitely. You know. For me, that's where you begin. You know, and it's about giving our young people that vision that there's nothing they can't do.
I think they have the vision, they just don't have the opportunity. Because I think it's a very classic trope to fall into, that these young kids are uninspired, that they haven't got something to look up to. I've got plenty of hopes and aspirations, but if I have these hopes and aspirations with no tools and actual accessibility, then they mean nothing. But these are the points that we'd like to see emphasised. Then we are going to get further into these conversations. We have loads of issues to talk about in this borough, coming from education, as we pointed out, housing, gentrification, policing, and we will touch on these in further episodes. So thank you everyone for coming today, and I hope this conversation was conducive. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and now introducing a performance by Kay.
A voice in 2020. Shortness of breath. How fitting, as the socially deaf start in the bidding of a mind, of a heart, and soul of a billion. See me in my frustration, see the colour of my skin. How is the least of these the most important of all? I hear the anguish of breaking glass, broken spirits, they call. Losing hope as a burning world scares me half to death. Empathise, because who will you run to when you are the oppressed? Silence in respect. Join me as I raise my fist. Hands up, I surrender. Tears fall. This may be it. Will I be missed? UK, born and raised. Living grenade, shaken, beaten, stirred. And when I explode, that's absurd. I'm a product of a machine that grinds me into dust. You may be in the same gear. Don't ignore it, discuss. My brothers, my sisters, it is clear, blood is red. How are we so divided with the same thoughts in our heads? Let scars remind of the pain. Wash the anger from your hands. Ceasefire. Be at peace. Don't make new cuts. Understand, wrongs do not make rights. Our message must be clear. A crowd must scream in unison for them to properly hear. Demand and march on. Open eyes to the plea. Change must be made. Pick it up from its knees. Help me. Help you. Help us. Who's next? Clearly see. We all slowly suffocate when one of us cannot breathe. I can't breathe.
Thank you for joining us today for the first Community Seeks, the first in the series of the long-running event. I'd like to thank all the organisations who took part today: Descendants, WAPI, Bolo, Delve, Pitts Hanger Gallery and Ealing Council.
Could we also thank these individuals? So Emil, Yara, Yasmin, Ian, Colin, that's it.
And we'd also like to give a personal thank you to Mandy from Open Ealing for actually letting us use this space to actually host the event. So thank you there.
And join us for the next talk on education coming soon.